When we first rolled into Sunset Willows, I swear I heard a chime. Not a car ding or a wind chime, a welcome chime. Like the neighborhood itself had a doorbell and it had decided we passed inspection. The grass was evenly clipped to what I later learned was exactly 2.25 inches. Not a blade over. Every house had beige vinyl siding so polished it reflected the sky like a hallucination. Mailboxes were uniform, down to the millimeter, and God help you if yours tilted even slightly. And the shutters? Oh, the shutters. Cypress dusk only. Any other color was considered visually violent according to the HOA guidebook, which was handed to us in a monogrammed binder on move-in day by a woman with the composure of a flight attendant and the eyes of a tax auditor. Her name was Meredith Carlson. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she chirped. "We value consistency, community, and clarity in all things. You'll find your welcome packet includes lawn care regulations, seasonal decor allowances, and a handy glossary of approved shrubbery." My husband Dan, who's technically ex-FBI but now just consults, gave her a polite smile. I could see his eyes already scanning the street like he was back in Quantico. Our daughter Ava, phone in hand, whispered, "This place is like the Truman Show, but with less personality." I wasn't so sure at first. After years of moving for Dan's assignments, I thought Sunset Willows might be exactly what we needed. Stability. Good schools. Zero crime. But the longer we stayed, the more it felt like we'd walked into a Stepford terrarium with a homeowners association that ran things like a fascist country club. We moved in on a Monday. By Thursday, we'd gotten our first notice. Subject: Curb Appeal Compliance Alert. Dear Raines family, we noted an irregularity in your front yard planter arrangement. Specifically, the asymmetry of your petunias violates Regulation 4.c.1, Visual Rhythm of Flora. Please correct this within 48 hours to avoid penalties. Warmly, Meredith Carlson, HOA President, Sunset Willows Subdivision 9. Dan laughed. I didn't, because when we checked our Ring camera later that night, we saw Meredith on our front porch at 3:17 a.m., staring at the petunias. Not touching, just staring. For 13 minutes. "Okay," Dan said. "This place is weirder than I thought." A few days later, Ava began asking around about some of the houses on the block that seemed off. No cars in the driveway, curtains always drawn. No packages ever picked up, yet no delivery pileups either. One of them, house number 14, had a gorgeous lawn that mowed itself, we were told. But who lives there? Ava asked during one of those wine and cheese HOA mixers held under those giant white tents. Meredith blinked. "Oh, the Thompsons! They, moved recently. Left very suddenly. We don't track where people go, of course. Not our place." Except her smile froze slightly at the edges, like a JPEG trying to load. Over the next week, we counted 12 houses that appeared perfectly maintained, but empty. Mail still arrived. Lawns stayed perfect. Halloween decorations came and went on time. But no one ever answered the door. At first, we thought it was some kind of lawn care syndicate. Then Dan got suspicious. "We're being watched," he said one night, peering out the blinds. "But not in the usual way. There's a pattern to this." So we started digging. That's when Dan unpacked his old gear. Ross. We weren't just any new family on the block. We came with clearance, counter surveillance, and a fully trained AI raccoon named Roger. Yes, Roger. Don't judge. He was part of a DARPA side project designed for mail interception in diplomatic zones. Dan had reprogrammed him for suburban recon. He could sniff out hidden cameras, dig up Wi-Fi routers, and deliver Amazon packages without alerting a soul. He also had a deep hatred of blow-up Santas. Still working on that bug. We deployed Roger first. let him roam at night. He came back with 6 different microtransmitters he found under various hedges and wind chimes. Next came the gnome bugs. Tiny surveillance mics disguised as ceramic garden gnomes. We placed 3 across the neighborhood. Within 48 hours, we caught audio of HOA board members discussing, quote, nonconformance, purity audits, and someone they only called the gardener. But the biggest shock came from our drone. It was a thermal mapping model, equipped with high-res infrared. We flew it late one night, scanning every house in the subdivision. And that's when we saw it. House number 22? Cold. No heat signature, no life. But the sprinkler turned on right at 4 a.m., and the porch light flicked on the second we flew overhead, like it was expecting us. Dan didn't say anything that night. He just stared at the monitor, arms crossed. Ava posted a TikTok that said, "I live in a gated cult, but the HOA has better surveillance than the Pentagon." And me? I started reading the HOA charter from front to back. Page 94, subsection 13A. Any household in violation of perpetual aesthetic balance may be subject to silent remediation. Silent remediation. What the hell does that mean? We hadn't even been here 2 weeks, and already Sunset Willows was starting to feel like something you couldn't just move into. You had to become it. We thought we were dealing with a power-hungry HOA, the kind that hyperventilates over a rogue mailbox decal. But by the second week, we realized we were dealing with something much worse. Aesthetic extremism. It all started with the licking. Ava caught it on one of our gnome cams. Gnome cam number 3, stationed in a bed of white impatiens across from house number 6. The footage showed Meredith Carlson, our HOA president and suburban dictator, strolling up the walkway in her usual uniform, wide-brimmed sun hat, pastel cardigan, and a clipboard thicker than the Bible. She paused at the front door, tilted her head, and, I swear I'm not making this up, extended her tongue and licked the gold-plated 6 off the house number. She licked the number off. Then she adjusted her sun hat, smiled faintly like she'd just done something noble, and walked away as if this was a completely standard Tuesday ritual. Dan paused the footage. She's marking properties. I laughed. Like a golden retriever? No, like a zealot. That night we heard screaming. Not bloody murder. Just one long, confused, panicked scream that echoed down our perfectly symmetrical cul-de-sac. It was from Carl Atwell, the guy 3 houses down who always barbecued shirtless and once tried to install a deck swing made of license plates, a clear nonconformant. The HOA had already slapped him with 5 violation notices in 1 week, ranging from unauthorized yard whimsy to non-regulation fence curvature. We ran outside and found Carl lying in the middle of his lawn, his legs completely encased in what looked like fresh cement. Each foot was jammed into a cinder block, still wet around the edges. On his forehead was a laminated sign taped to his skin, non-compliant aesthetic. I woke up like this, Carl screamed, flailing like a turtle flipped on its back. I can't move my feet. They paved my feet. Call 911, someone yelled. Ava already had her phone out. They hung a garden hose on his mailbox like a noose, she whispered. Within minutes, the HOA rolled up in a white golf cart with a Sunset Willows logo embossed in gold. Meredith hopped out with the calm grace of a woman about to publicly gaslight an entire block. Oh dear, she said, squinting. It seems Mr. Atwell has had a decorative malfunction. Someone cemented his feet, I snapped. She smiled. Our bylaws are very clear about ground-level interventions. What the hell does that even mean? Dan growled. She turned, smile never faltering. You're still new here. These incidents tend to sort themselves out. 2 HOA enforcers in matching khakis pulled out power tools, and cut Carl free. Not before replacing his mailbox with a new regulation version. The old one, covered in bumper stickers and a plastic flamingo head, was placed in a black trash bag like it had been contaminated. Carl was carted away to recuperate in a neutral environment. We never saw him again. His house? Within 48 hours it was repainted, the lawn resodded, and a new for sale private listing sign appeared. We knocked. No one answered. That was the turning point for Dan. He went into full investigator mode. He started mapping every violation, every strange incident, every neighbor who'd moved suddenly. He found patterns. There were always homes with some kind of aesthetic disruption, a non-matching trim color, an unusual driveway shape, a front door painted anything other than resigned eggshell. He even found archived HOA newsletters that described early Sunset Willows efforts as the Visual Purity Initiative, a phrase that sounded way too close to fascist propaganda for my comfort. "You think they're brainwashing people?" I asked one night, half joking. Dan looked up from his corkboard of crime. "I think they're disappearing anyone who messes with the aesthetic algorithm." Ava didn't need convincing. She'd already started editing together the licking tape and the cinderblock incident into a TikTok series titled #HoCult, complete with unsettling synth music and glitchy zooms on Meredith's face. Her captions were savage. "Why is my HOA president licking metal like she's possessed? This man wore neon socks and now he's entombed in concrete. Coincidence?" The comments were immediate. "Y'all in the suburbs or a David Lynch movie? This HOA needs Jesus and a restraining order." She blinked sideways. Reptilian confirmed. We tried to confront Meredith again. Dan, always the professional, printed out a list of every home that had been vacated in the last 6 months. He highlighted timestamps, lack of sale records, and pointed out that at least 5 were still receiving forwarded mail, including a birthday card for a child who should have been home last week. We caught her at the next HOA open forum, if you can call it that. Picture folding chairs arranged with military precision and lemonade so bitter it could strip paint. Meredith stood at a podium flanked by 2 potted ferns. Perfectly symmetrical, of course. Dan stepped up to the microphone. "We have serious concerns about property owners who seem to have disappeared. Their homes are maintained, but no one's home. No moving trucks. No transfers. Where are these people?" A pause. Meredith tilted her head like a confused Labrador. "You'll find that Sunset Willows is a transitional community. Some people simply can't adjust." "You're not answering the question," I said. "They moved. We don't track where." "Moved where?" Ava asked. "Purgatory?" A few older residents chuckled. Meredith's smile tightened. Then she said something that still gives me chills. "The HOA ensures balance. Not everyone is meant to remain." That night, Gnome Cam number 2 caught 2 people in all black uniforms adjusting our mailbox. One of them sprayed something on the post. When Dan tested the residue, it came back as an industrial adhesive typically used in forensic tagging. "They're marking us," he said. Like Carl. The next morning, a note was taped to our door. "Your mailbox exhibits deviant curvature. This is your first remediation warning." It wasn't signed, but the R in remediation was shaped like a thorny vine. Sunset Willows wasn't a neighborhood anymore. It was a cleansing ground, and we were next on the list. I never thought I'd say this, but our garden gnome army saved us. After the mailbox adhesive incident, which, by the way, left a faint but persistent floral scent we still can't identify, we decided to go fully tactical. No more subtlety. No more hoping for a paper trail or a sane explanation. It was time for Operation Gnome Surveillance. Dan brought out the gear like a dad prepping for war. I'm talking micro-drones disguised as bees, camouflaged motion sensors hidden in mulch bags, and yes, the gnomes, each one retrofitted with 360 degrees audio capture, motion detection lenses in the eyes, and encrypted Bluetooth relays to a server Dan kept in the attic. Ava named them all. Sir Blinks-a-Lot went near Meredith's house. General Pebbletoe was stationed at the HOA clubhouse. Lil Surveillance kept watch over the cul-de-sac roundabout. We even stuck a few along the backyards of the supposedly empty homes. Those were the most active. And I mean weirdly active. Let me walk you through the top 3 gnome captures from that week. 1. The Whisper Archive. From GnomeCam #7, hiding behind a concrete goose in front of house number 9, we picked up a late-night conversation between 2 HOA board members. Randy and Lorraine, the kind of folks who iron their khakis and wear pastel visors in the rain. Randy. She said house number 14 is still radiating asymmetry. Lorraine, we can't process another purge this quarter. The archives are full. Randy, then tell her to put it in the whisper room. We didn't know what the whisper room was yet, but the tone in their voices, like they were talking about a storage locker for cursed objects. 2. The mulch rights. From GnomeCam #5 in a flower bed outside the HOA clubhouse, we caught Meredith and several board members in a semicircle surrounding a mound of mulch. Meredith was holding something small, a gold trinket, and speaking in rhythmic tones. Symmetry be within you, order before anomaly, purity before variance. Then they all bowed. To the mulch. To the mulch. 3. The gardener. This one made Ava scream, and she watches horror movies with the lights off. Around 3:03 a.m., GnomeCam number 2, stationed on our own lawn, caught a figure emerging from between 2 supposedly abandoned homes. He was hunched, in faded overalls, dragging a rake behind him like a grim reaper of landscaping. He paused in front of our house, looked directly at the gnome, smiled, then whispered, "Too much clover. She won't like that," and disappeared. That's when Dan called in a favor. He still had a few friends in quiet departments, the kind with no business cards and blacked-out SUVs. He asked one of them to run a background check on Meredith Carlson. The results? Meredith Carlson didn't exist before 2008. No social security number, no address history, no family connections. Just appeared one day in Sunset Willows as the HOA secretary, then swiftly promoted to president after the mysterious disappearance of her predecessor. That predecessor's house is now the HOA clubhouse. No plaque, no photo, not even a mention. Dan muttered, "She's either deep cover or completely fabricated," Ava said, "or a hologram run by a sentient landscaping algorithm." We laughed, then realized she might not be joking. We started noticing strange behaviors. Every time someone watered their lawn by hand instead of using the automated sprinkler system, they got a friendly aesthetic reminder. Every time someone left out Halloween decorations past November 2nd at 9 a.m. sharp, they were assigned mandatory, quote, community rehabilitation, which we later discovered was just hours of forced edging, the lawn kind, under Meredith's supervision. One poor guy put up a string of mismatched Christmas lights. We saw him the next morning sweeping his own roof while a board member watched and took notes. "I feel like I'm living in a fascist Sims game," Ava whispered one night. Dan looked up from his notebook. "We're not living in it. We're being cataloged by it." Then came the incident with the AI raccoon. Roger had been doing nightly reconnaissance, checking empty homes, sniffing out HOA tampering. But one night he didn't come back. We activated his GPS tag. He was stationary, inside what appeared to be a shed behind the clubhouse. So naturally, we went full infiltration mode. Dan dressed in HOA standard pastels and walked right into the clubhouse during a, quote, community aesthetic planning workshop, basically a culty PowerPoint session about mulch varieties. He smiled, nodded, praised the symmetrical placement of fern baskets, and when no one was looking, slipped into the back hallway. Meanwhile, Ava and I stayed outside in a parked car, monitoring the cams. Dan's voice came through the comms. "There's a locked hatch in the utility closet. Going in." We held our breath. Then static. Then him again. "You're not going to believe this. I think I found the whisper room." What Dan described didn't sound like a room. It sounded like a shrine, lined with old homeowner contracts, laminated violations, and photos of families long gone, all pinned to corkboards with strings and notes. One board was labeled Visual Deviancy Index. Another read Historical Infractions to be reviewed, and in the center, a desk covered in golden house numbers, stained with tongue marks. Roger was there too, in a cage, mildly chewing on a Home Depot receipt. Dan grabbed him, snapped a few photos, and was almost out when he heard footsteps. Multiple, coming from somewhere above. From inside the walls, he bolted. Out the door, through the side yard, past a hedge that closed behind him by itself. He made it back to the car, breathless. "The contracts talk back," he muttered. "What?" "I picked one up, I swear to God," it whispered. "Return to visual order." We drove home in silence. That night, Ava dropped her first full #HOA cult TikTok. A stitched edit of Meredith licking the house numbers, the mulch ritual, Carl's cement feet, and Dan's whisper room photos. Caption, "Y'all, my HOA is a suburban death cult, and I have the receipts." It exploded. 1.3 million views in 2 hours. And the comments? They weren't laughing anymore. They were sending similar videos from their own neighborhoods. Apparently, Subdivision 9 wasn't the only one. There's nothing quite like watching your husband slowly lose his grip on reality in a cardigan. Dan decided to go full covert. After our successful whisper room heist and Roger's narrow escape, he insisted the only way to get closer to the truth was from within. He applied to join the HOA Board of Aesthetic Oversight, a committee so niche it didn't even appear in the community charter. Meredith just called it the palette. And they welcomed him. Too easily. By the next HOA meeting, Dan was seated next to Meredith, sipping cucumber water from a glass embossed with the Sunset Willows logo, wearing a salmon pink polo that I know he didn't own the day before. I watched from the back row as he took notes on a presentation called Aggressive Neutrality, the Beige Doctrine. Meredith beamed at him like he was a prodigy. "Mr. Raines has shown remarkable commitment to balance," she purred, flipping to a slide titled Fence Post Sin, a Study in Asymmetry. "Few newcomers adjust so quickly." She wasn't wrong. That night, Dan was different. Not suspicious, not weird, just eerily calm. He arranged the throw pillows on our couch in a Fibonacci sequence. He recited shrubbery names in Latin, and at one point I caught him measuring the distance between our kitchen chairs. When I asked if he was okay, he just whispered, "The shadows under the shingles must match." Okay, we were officially in get him out territory. The next morning, he left early for what he called an emergency irregularity response at Lot 12. I followed. Discreetly. From my parked car, I watched Dan and 3 other board members stand in a half circle around a tulip bed that had sprouted just one yellow flower. They stared at it like it was a burning bush. Then one of them, a man named Gil with wire-rimmed glasses and the posture of a resentful librarian, removed the offending flower with tongs, dropped it in a black velvet pouch, and bowed. Dan did too. That night he painted our fence sage gray, the approved accent color for homes with northeast-facing driveways. He didn't even consult me. When I told Ava, she simply said, "He's been HOA pilled. We needed to snap him out of it." Ava had a plan. You know how Meredith gets all twitchy when anything non-regulation shows up? We're gonna feed her a buffet of chaos. So we did. We placed 7 flamingos, neon pink, across our yard in a pentagram. Ava dressed Roger in a rainbow tie-dye hoodie and had him deliver glitter bombs disguised as HOA suggestion forms. I painted one shutter strawberry anxiety, an unapproved red-pink color I found in an underground Etsy paint forum. Within 2 hours, Meredith was on our porch. She didn't knock, just stood there, staring, twitching. "You're spiraling," she said. "Dan chose the color," I replied, sweet as sugar. "He said it offends the shadows less." Something flickered in her. Did he? I knew she didn't buy it. But she didn't push. Meanwhile, Ava kept digging. She'd gotten access to the subdivision's buried utility blueprints, don't ask how, and found something strange. An entire underground structure below the main street, marked only as Subdivision 0. It didn't match any building permits. There was no access point, but every sewer line rerouted around it. So one night, Ava took a camera and a crowbar and snuck out. She texted me at 2:14 a.m. I found the hatch. Behind a row of bushes across from house number 23, another uninhabited property, was a concealed metal plate, bolted shut. Ava had scraped off layers of dirt and spray paint to find it. We'd pried it open the next morning, pretending we were, quote, installing new gnome sensors, because at this point, everyone just assumed we were that family. Inside, a spiral staircase, metal, rusted, leading down into pitch black. Dan appeared behind us halfway down the stairs. I don't know how he knew. He just did. He looked like himself again. Sweaty. Confused. "I woke up and the HOA had a meeting without me," he said. "That's not allowed." We kept going. Subdivision 0 wasn't a storage bunker. It wasn't even finished construction. It was a simulation room. Massive white walls, rows of artificial yards, replicas of front porches, digital screens playing different, non-compliant behaviors on loop, overgrown hedges, clashing flower beds, multicolored wreaths, and in the middle of it all, a podium. On it sat a binder labeled "The Doctrine of Symmetric Harmony." Meredith's handwriting. Ava picked it up, flipped through it. Pages of ideological nonsense. A manifesto that read like Better Homes and Gardens had joined a doomsday cult. One passage stood out. "A community divided by aesthetics is a community in decay. Let the fence be level. Let the colors align. Let the mulch be pure." Dan took the binder and dropped it into his tote bag, said nothing. That night, he came home and burned every HOA-issued handbook in our fire pit. The sage gray fence, repainted black. The pillows, tossed into a trash bag. The clipboard Meredith gave him, snapped in two. "I remember now," he said. "I volunteered to expose them. They got inside me. But they didn't finish." The next HOA meeting? We didn't just attend. We planned to detonate. The day the internet found Sunset Willows, everything changed. Ava uploaded the full expose at 7:03 a.m. on a Sunday. She titled it, #OAccult. They tried to reprogram my dad because our bush was too viridian. The video was a masterpiece. Cinematic transitions. Glitchy audio distortion every time Meredith's face appeared. Drone footage of perfectly symmetrical lawns intercut with Roger the raccoon clawing at a homeowner contract. She even included a slowed-down clip of the HOA reciting mulch blessings around a shrub. The outro? Dan whispering. The HOA doesn't want harmony. They want control disguised as symmetry. It hit 1 million views by lunch, 5 million by dinner. And by the time Meredith called an emergency community visual alignment session, #OAccult had cracked 12.7 million and started trending above Kardashian house fire and Taylor Swift's poodle wedding. The comments? Unhinged and glorious. "I live in Subdivision 7. They burned my doormat for being plaid. My HOA made me repaint my chimney whisper gray because the original color was emotionally hostile. I knew my dog was acting weird around our board president. He barked in Morse code. I translated it. It said run. People began posting their own stories. One woman from Arizona uploaded security footage of her HOA president replacing all the neighborhood birdhouses with metal cubes to preserve angular harmony. Another guy shared a screenshot of his fine for owning disruptive succulents. It wasn't just Sunset Willows anymore. It was a movement. Meredith tried damage control, and it was chef's kiss incompetent. She issued a formal statement to the Sunset Willows listserv. From HOA President Meredith Carlson. Subject: HOA cult accusations. Statement of integrity. Our community is founded on balance, order, and mutual respect for agreed-upon visual codes. We categorically deny any accusations of forced aesthetic conformity, psychological suggestion, or domesticated surveillance raccoons. Any residents participating in digital defamation or, quote, mimetic sabotage will be referred to the Committee of Symmetric Correction. Warmly, Meredith. She actually used the term mimetic sabotage. You can't write this kind of comedy. The next day, 3 news vans rolled into the neighborhood. Local Channel 9 did a piece called Mulch, Madness, and Mind Control, Inside the Cult of Sunset Willows. A journalist cornered Meredith on the sidewalk. She smiled, blinked too slowly, and said, "I'm not a cult leader. I'm a design consultant." We knew she was cracking, especially when the dog got involved. Remember the golden retriever? House number 17. The one we never saw on walks, but always heard digging like it was searching for Narnia? We had nicknamed him Mulch, because he only barked when the word was said. So naturally, Ava tested it on camera. She approached the fence, held up her phone, and said, "Hey, buddy, what do you think of Mulch?" And that sweet, fluffy boy howled like a banshee, leapt the 6-foot privacy fence like a werewolf in a Hallmark movie, and immediately began digging under the foundation of the HOA clubhouse. Neighbors gathered. The news crews sprinted. Dan stood in the center of it all, holding the binder from Subdivision 0 like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. The hole Mulch dug exposed wiring, not typical building stuff, no, active data cables, glowing, leading into a trapdoor we'd never noticed under the clubhouse gazebo. The news team's camera caught the moment Dan opened it. A hidden basement lined with digital files, homeowner reports, thermal drone footage, and a hologram projection rig. And guess who the central figure was? Meredith Carlson. Only not really, because the real Meredith Carlson wasn't in the system. We found her signature on documents dating back 30 years, but always as a proxy, never as a person, no driver's license, no property ownership, no bank records. Just a role. That's when old man Tucker from house number 3 stepped forward. He'd been in Sunset Willows since the beginning, barely left his porch, mostly ignored. But that day, he marched toward the chaos with a single sentence. "There ain't no Meredith Carlson. Never was." We stared. She's a front, a placeholder. They rotate the Meredith every 10 years. She's the public face of the HOA, but the real boss? That's the gardener. A collective gasp. Tucker took us to the oldest property in the neighborhood. House number 0. It's not on the HOA map. No mailbox. Just a faded picket fence and a gate held shut with twine. Inside, an elderly man in coveralls. Crooked spine. Eyes like satellite dishes. He was pruning bonsai trees with a surgical blade and humming Beethoven. "Afternoon," he said. Dan stepped forward. "Are you the gardener?" "No," he replied, not looking up. "I'm the one tending the gardener." He opened a cellar door. Downstairs was a server farm. Ancient computers, blinking lights, file drawers labeled symmetry breaches, and a massive mainframe. In the middle of it all, a screen. Meredith's face, but older, cracked, looping the same phrase in a static whisper. "Let the lines be level. Let the balance restore. Let the variance purge." Ava screamed. "I swear I felt the floor breathe. We uploaded everything. All of it, direct to the cloud." The HOA board resigned the next morning. The clubhouse was condemned. Subdivision 0 was fenced off by the county. Meredith's face still loops on a rogue HOA website that no one claims to run. Just a homepage with a banner that reads, "Aesthetic harmony is forever." After the broadcast, after the server farm, after mulch heroically clawed the HOA's secrets into daylight, you'd think that would be it, that the HOA would crumble like a sugar cookie in a rainstorm. But no, they had one last house left, house number 0, the one no one ever noticed, because it wasn't supposed to be noticed. We tried reporting it to the county. They couldn't find a record of it. Literally, GIS systems skipped over that plot of land like it was negative space. Dan tried pulling up blueprints and zoning permits. Nothing. No address. No parcel ID. "It's a statistical ghost," he muttered, scrolling through layers of redacted files. Yet we'd all been inside it. We'd met the man tending the gardener. We'd seen the basement, the servers, the old computer screens running Meredith's endless loop. But when we returned the next day, gone. I'm not being dramatic. I mean, gone. Gone. No fence, no porch, no bonsai trees. Just grass, too green, too fresh, growing over the exact place we descended into the digital cult brain of Sunset Willows. Ava live-streamed the entire thing. Y'all, the house disappeared. Like poof. One day it's there, the next, it's lawn nirvana. She knelt down, ran her fingers through the perfectly mowed turf. Dan took a shovel to it. We hit concrete 6 inches down. A smooth slab with the HOA's sigil burned into it. A triangle of hedge clippers surrounded by curling vines, carved beneath it. Deviation buried. Order maintained. The neighborhood was quiet for days. No HOA patrols, no newsletter, no pastel-gloved enforcers asking about our patio feng shui alignment. Just silence. We thought it was over. Until one morning, we woke up to find our entire front yard resodded overnight. Again, not just any sod. The HOA's signature blend, Harmony Turf No. 9, genetically engineered to grow in perfect diagonals. In the center of the lawn sat one item, a flamingo, split cleanly in two, its eyes replaced with tiny camera lenses. Dan didn't speak for a full minute. Then he grabbed the bag of evidence, the HOA's cult binder, the whisper room files, and drove straight to the county courthouse. It took some doing. Legal tape, affidavits. A visit from a woman named Regina in code enforcement, who whispered, "My HOA once fined me for having wind chimes. I'm on your side." We filed an injunction, then a lawsuit, class action. We weren't the only ones. Ava's viral campaign had spawned dozens of similar exposés from across the country. HOAs operating like cult cells, demanding symmetry as a moral imperative. Turns out Sunset Willows was part of a network. They called themselves Subdivision 9. The trial lasted 6 weeks. We had lawyers, analysts, whistleblowers. Roger the raccoon presented as an expert witness. He wore a bow tie. The judge allowed it. The HOA board didn't show. They sent a fax. The aesthetic will defend itself. You cannot sue an idea. We won, naturally. The judge, who ironically had been fined by his own HOA for excessive gnome clustering, ruled that Sunset Willows HOA was engaged in extra-legal behavioral conditioning, coercive property manipulation, and malicious lawn-based surveillance. All bylaws were nullified. The HOA was disbanded. The clubhouse was bulldozed. Carl Atwell returned from rehabilitation. His feet were fine. He now wears Crocs proudly. And house number 0 never came back. But every so often, a neighbor reports seeing an elderly man walking through their backyard, rake in hand, humming Beethoven and muttering about mulch levels. Ava caught one last video, grainy, shaky, late at night, of a porch light turning on across an empty lot, followed by the sound of clippers clicking in perfect rhythm. She posted it with the caption, "Subdivision 9 sleeps." But the aesthetic never dies. So where are we now? Dan's back to normal. Mostly. He does still arrange his tools in the shape of a perfect spiral. But hey, we all need hobbies. Roger's retired. He lives in the garage with a hammock and a GoPro. Ava has a sponsorship deal with a security tech startup called GnomeGuard. She's designing HOA-proof surveillance tools for Gen Z suburbanites. And me? I ripped up the front yard and planted wildflowers. Purple, red, yellow, chaotic. A neighbor passed by once, sniffed, and said, "You know that's not regulation." I just smiled. There is no regulation anymore. Home Sparkle's Sunset Willows is free. No more mulch cults. No more pastel tyranny. Just a neighborhood full of weirdos, the way it should be. And if Meredith ever tries to rise again, we've got Roger and a whole internet army waiting.